Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Dropping Knowledge with Noah. Today, we've got a very special guest, Chase Abbott, VP of DSS Sales here at Cox Automotive, someone I owe a lot of my career to and I love working with, and has an incredible viewpoint on what's going on in the marketplace. So today, we're just going to kind of have a conversation about what's going on in the automotive industry, tech, selling cars, and just a little bit of his background. So welcome, Chase. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me, Mr. Noah Lee. I appreciate it. And it's great to see you continuing to roll this podcast out and provide great insights into our partners in the automotive industry. I continue to tune in.
I swear we're going to get dozens of views. It's going to be incredible.
And next year, we're going to get a budget for this show.
Yeah, exactly. So I know that time is limited, so we're going to just kind of cut right to the chase here and go through some of these questions. I think the first one, and this is something I've been nerding out on a lot, is these studies that Cox Automotive puts out every year. And most recently, I did a video all about the Cox Automotive Buyer's Journey Survey. So we survey about 3,000 people who bought a car in the last year. How was the experience? What amount of time did they spend? What tools did they use, et cetera? But I think one of the big things that I found was that customers are happier than ever with the purchase process. But I think we can still agree that there's a stigma around car dealerships and buying a car, right? There's still the old phrase, like, I'd rather go and get a root canal than buy a car. But the numbers are showing that, hey, you know what? People, when they do buy a car, they're really happy with the overall process. So, to you, what are some ways a dealer can get the word out that they can make that process really painless and actually kind of fun for shoppers?
Yeah, I just had a tooth extracted, and I would much rather go buy a car than do what I did there. So now I'm a little biased coming from the industry. So here's what I would tell you. One of my, not my most recent, but not that long ago, not very dated pieces on Automotive News was about the trust gap in automotive retail that really still remains today. I saw it very prevalently in my time in the car business. I think the overarching or maybe the key stat that I definitely remember from that piece was 92% of customers are being asked to re-enter their information when they come in store, even though they started their deal online, usually on that particular dealer's website or that dealer's digital retailing tool. And so the first thing they get when they get out of the car is just a miss on the trust. Because it's like, well, why did I spend all that time online doing this? If you're just going to make me do it again right when I get in here. And you start to kind of from there unravel a bit and start to kind of question everything that you did as a part to prepare for that journey. Some of that might be control on the dealer side. But at the end of the day, it's like, look, the internet kind of forced the dealer's hands a little bit and really informed the consumer. And the folks that are still trying to hold on to their paper stock sheets, I think are going to have a hard time in the future to scale and compete with some of these folks that are really taking the customer experience seriously.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen some dealer groups do, customer journey surveys of their own and interviewing customers after they bought a car and creating like video trainings for their leadership to show like, hey, this guy spent 5 hours at the dealership. Here's where your process broke down. And they're winning, right? They're doing really well. They really focus on that customer experience, and the word is getting out. Now,
that's what my experience or the customer experience. What's more important, right? And I think that's where a lot of times decisions get made from that viewpoint. So yeah, I know which one I choose today.
And the thing is too is like with the customer experience, you win on that side, they're going to come back and buy their next car. And I think everybody wants to sell, that first car, but more importantly, they want to sell that next car. Yeah. And talking about selling cars, you kind of sat on both sides of the desk, right? You've spent a number of years working in dealerships, doing all sorts of fun stuff. And now you're leading sales for multiple Cox Automotive brands. What are some of the lessons from your dealership days that you're still using today?
Not much what I would tell you, especially back in 2003, kind of when I started in the car business and especially in internet, about 3 months after I started, I got into the internet game. And I really learned quickly that time kills deals. If we weren't fast enough to respond, if we weren't quick enough to get something scheduled on the appointment, they wanted to buy the car, we couldn't get them in until Saturday, whatever. That was something I really, really learned. If I was slow to the punch, folks wouldn't even respond to me because they had already talked to a fewer dealers and maybe had fatigue and didn't want to talk to another one. They felt like they had enough. And so, what I really try to do is is when I got into the software side, there are so many things that apply in retail car sales versus retail software. And that is the same. I will tell you, it's why today in our sales teams, as you know, we do inside outside team selling. And that comes from my stigma as an internet director worried about FQRs, which is first quality response on an internet leak. And so I used to get judged harshly on how quickly I followed up. And so the same reason we do, like I said, the inside outside team selling, it's so that we can have somebody on the phone to answer a dealer's questions at the ready, respond to the lead immediately when it comes in. And then we have an outside regional manager that can go in and shake your hand and let you know that we're serious about earning your business at the same time. So kind of the best of both worlds. And I think that's still, it sticks with me, really sticks with me. It's probably an understatement, more like stapled to my forehead every day. that time kills deals. And so I think that one has stuck with me and still applies pretty much in every business and in every sale to some degree. So
that's wild. So another thing that we're seeing is dealers, they're juggling more software than ever before. It seems like there's a new software solution for just about every, problem that could be out there for a dealership. But what do you think the biggest misconception dealers still have about using tech for their business? Like what are they missing right now?
So, there's a couple of schools of thought on how to buy your software. And I'm obviously in one camp, which is, you should really try to get into an ecosystem and base, your bet somewhat on the integration and moving data from piece to piece, because that has such an impact in my experience in the car business on the seller experience. How many times do I have to re-enter an address to do a car deal on a busy Saturday? So I would say that's a big one for me is how much duplicate entry do we have to do? How much, data that we're forcing down? So the other side of that is, you buy the best of, what you think is the best CRM, the best website, the best inventory tool, the best market pricing tool, the best desking tool. And you really just place your bet on getting the best software stack in there from multiple companies. The problem is then you get that integration problem where you're going to re-entering things because the APIs, this company may be 10 years old, this company may be 6 months old, and there's not going to be APIs between those, which means, or bridges, as we would say, to move that data. And so to me, it's getting to an ecosystem where that data is moving efficiently, not only for the seller experience, as I mentioned, but also the customer experience, because every time you have to re-enter that info, it takes time. And, if you're doing 40 deals on a busy Saturday, they all got exponentially longer if you have to re-enter the address 7 times. It's just how math works, So that was one I would say is still very prevalent today. Whether you put all your nuts in one basket or you go try to find the best. To me, we got to move at light speed. So integration is really takes precedent with me when it comes to moving that data around and doing a bunch of car deals. So
100%. So I think the biggest tech hype that's happening right now is obviously AI. I think every single company just is plastering AI across every product they can think of, and it's everywhere that we look, right? Yeah. So what's your take on AI in the automotive industry, and what's really making you excited about it?
Yeah, it reminds me of like big data back at NADA, like 2017, I think it was. That was the big call sign, big data, And so maybe that's the precursor to AI. Here's what I would tell you. AI is not going anywhere. It is, obviously bomb kind of went off and everybody's Oklahoma land rushing the AI thing today. And here's what I would say in automotive specifically. There are a lot of different flavors of it. And so it behooves you to get versed on what's going on, and what providers are offering. And the big fundamental difference to me, other than the chatbot stuff that we all know about, is, the AI, the predictive analytics stuff. A lot of the industry is pointed back at employees, as they should be. How many lines in this RO for this service writer? What's my per copy on my F&I guy? And we're going through AI's alerting us to things we might not have known otherwise. It's all great. But that's kind of where it begins and ends with them. I think the difference that we have at Cox is, we get 82 million unique visitors a month through our first party data sites like AutoTrader, Kelley Blue Book, Dealer.com. And not only are we looking back at the employee stuff, as I mentioned, the competitors are doing, but we're really spending a lot of time looking at the customer and what they're doing online, because we know they're hitting these mega sites. They're bidding their trade on KBB. They're going deeper on dealer.com on the actual dealership website that they might visit. And they probably started on Automotive. And so we're kind of covering all three of the, the receptacles, I guess you would say, that would catch that customer. And so I think that's a huge deal when you look at AI. When I was selling cars, it was about efficiency, obviously, but it was mostly about how many cars did I sell this month versus last month as a GM, and how many cars did I sell this month versus that month last year. Are we up? Are we down? Right. And then ultimately the P&L, black or red. What are we looking at? Do we make money? Do we lose money? And so if I'm a GM or a new car manager and I'm betting the farm on, what I want to go do and spend AI looking back at the employees or looking at customers, I know I'm a little biased, but I would go try to get more cars over the curb, because that took care of every problem that we might have experienced in any given month in the dealership. And so I think when you go look at that, you really got to say, are we looking at our employees or are we looking at customers, and see if you can kind of, not just get what they send you on the lead. There is a lot going on in their URLs through that path on that web visit. And I think dealers are not loving the internet because they lost a bit of control. And tools like AI that is looking at the customer base, the prospects, is really providing some of that control back to the dealers that they're used to having. It's just through a different vertical.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you have so many great points about that. And a couple of things that I've been really thinking about lately is consumers are using AI more than ever before, and they're pointing that AI at your dealership. So it's kind of like they've got the Terminator, and he's not going to stop. He doesn't feel pain. He doesn't feel remorse, and he's looking to find a deal. So you got to kind of think about, well, how do I even the score here? And, investing in AI on your side of the business. The other thing that I'm seeing too is, if you're thinking, well, AI is really not going to happen, it's really not adding value, et cetera, just look at the investment in power generation to, power AI. So I'm reading this super long white paper on AI and the future of AI. And it's predicting that in the next, I think, 2 years, the power demand of AI in the United States alone is going to be equal to that of a small to medium-sized state. Okay.
Wow.
And then by 2030, it's going to use as much as 20% of the entire United States power generation to power AI clusters. And we're talking, $100 billion AI clusters and even $1 trillion AI clusters. So if you think AI is like, it's big data, it's there, but it's not really going to be a part of what I do, you're wrong. Like, they're going to be AI agents that you're going to be dropping into your dealership that are going to be like a remote employee. I mean, we haven't seen it yet, but it's coming. So think about that. And I would recommend be a first adopter.
Yeah. And I would give you just a bit of a tip on AI. Like I tell my sales team, my leaders is, AI is fantastic. It can do a lot of the heavy lifting, especially when it comes to content creation or use like a generative AI.
Yep.
But I also tell them, don't turn yourself into soybeans or corn. Don't become a commodity because you're just completely relying on the AI to do your job. At what point do we need you if that's the case?
Yeah.
And so I would tell you that, look, I talk a lot about steak and sizzle. I think a lot of AI can get done, 50% of the steak, but you've got to show up in that content and you've got to put your imprint on it to really provide that sizzle, because everything else is kind of just steak, if that makes sense. So keep that in mind as you're using Gen AI, get in the game, but also remember that you got to put your own stamp on the stuff,
Yep. Use it as like your own little R2D2 to help you out.
That's right. Or backstop. I use it as a backstop a lot of times, just to bounce something off to see if it, without feeling bad about showing it to anyone, You
can tell it whatever you want.
That's right.
All right. So obviously automotive can be high pressure, right? So you've led a lot of different teams and you've had a lot of success leading, different sales teams. Now, what do you think is your secret to motivating your teams without burning them out, right? And that's a big challenge, I think.
Yeah, keeping the momentum is tough. I think you've got to, as one of the guys I watch online, Mr. Cynic, says all the time, you can have a culture by default or you can have a culture by design. And we try to choose the latter on that. But, it's tough. We've got macro trends with what's going on in automotive. We've got budget constraints. We've got all these things. We've got new employees. We've got new salespeople we're training. And so there's a lot of, prop wash, if you will, going on. And then you're never going to get out of that. And so I think what it is for me in leadership is being the calm in the storm, not getting too worked up about anything and really trying to keep a level head, because if you're leading large sales teams, or even small sales teams, if you have a bad day, if you're frazzled, if you're emotional, you just gave a license to every single person on your team to go do the same thing. And so to me, what I've been so successful with is really trying to keep that calm head and then really just showing command. It's always important for me to have, my folks want to work for me versus have to. And I've worked for a lot of leaders over the years that have been fantastic. I've worked for some that aren't so good. And I wrote down things, and something I've kept for about 15 years old, I'd say, maybe a little older. But, through my leadership journey, I've written down the things that I really liked about a particular leader. Most of them are nameless. It's just the behavior.
Yeah.
And or things I didn't like. And I always wanted to do that because I had aspirations to get into leadership. And about once a year, I kind of have a ceremony with myself where I go pull that dusty old book out of my closet that's right next to me here. And I'll go through that. And I guarantee you, I am doing some of the things that I hated when I was a salesperson. And it helps keep me grounded. It helps remind me of where I came from. I started here in a cube with a phone book, man. And it's a lot of the reason why I don't leave, because I've done everyone's job, and you really can't BS me too much when it comes to, what's going on in that role, because I've kind of had them all. And if I go, if I went somewhere else, I'd just be a hired corporate executive. So I believe in what we're doing here. And that's why I've been here, for almost 18 years now.
So that's awesome. All right. So you obviously worked a lot of deals, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
What's one of the craziest objections you've ever heard from a dealership when you're trying to sell them software?
I've heard a lot of them. My days in the South, I was the Southeast regional manager for a long time. So the South and me, just a love affair. I will say one of the craziest. It was definitely probably one of the funniest. I was calling Mississippi and trying to sell the best CRM in the industry, which also, wasn't cheap. And went round and round. I was with this guy, and a great guy. And we did the demo. He really liked the tool. And we got to the price, and he didn't like the price, which, that happens. And the best thing is that he got upset kind of by the pricing. And then his expectation was much lower. And he told me, we don't need no crim down here. And crim was how he said CRM. And I'll never forget that line. And it's still infamous in our sales team today. We don't need no crim down here. And I love Mississippi. It's where I bought my last vehicle. But that would always crack me up, man. So
incredible. All right, we got 1 minute left. So we're going to do lightning round, have a little bit of fun here.
Yeah.
Favorite car you've ever owned, your least favorite car, and dream car you still want to own.
Okay. My favorite car that I've ever owned is the one I own now that took me 11 months to buy, which is a F-150 Raptor R. I have a complex about paying over sticker as a former GM. So it took me 11 months to find someone that would sell me one of those for not 30 or 40,000 overs. They were just wild. For an F-150, like, what happened for my time in the car business? But I do love that vehicle. It is an amazing machine. Least favorite. When I went into the car business, I bought a shooter because we still got demos back then. Demos are kind of still a thing, but not near as much as they used to be.
Yep.
But we got demos. But I thought, well, if something ever happens, I'm going to need a vehicle. So I bought a 92 Mercury Topaz from a buddy of mine. It had the seatbelt that went on the little slider.
I'm very familiar with that car. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So clean as a whistle. Clean as a whistle. Ended up trading it in later on a car that I bought or sold to myself in the car, but it's got $2,000 out of it from the GM. Sight unseen, paid $500. And then he got really upset at me the next day when I brought it in because it had been sitting outside for about 2 years and all the paint was oxidized. And so I don't think he was very happy, but it was a good deal for me. I made $1,500 on that deal. And so that would be that one. My favorite car of all time, which is still an aspiration of mine, is it's not necessarily specific to 67. It kind of started there, but a 67 Shelby GT 500 Mustang. I'm a Ford guy. Yep. Grew up with a Ford family. Some of my family works for the plant here in Kansas City. And, watching Steve McQueen and Bullitt, watching Nick Cage and Gone in 60 Seconds just kind of ruined me as a kid.
Yeah.
So there will be one day a late 60s Mustang resto mod setting in my garage when it becomes a little bit more feasible.
All right. Can't wait to see it. Can't wait to see it.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks again, Chase. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your very busy day. I know we've had some challenges getting you locked down for it. So I really appreciate you joining us. And for those of you watching, be sure to stay tuned. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. And stay tuned for more Dropping Knowledge of Noah. Thanks again, Chase.
Thanks, Noah. Appreciate you having me. And thanks, everybody, for taking a listen.